The horrific images of Tyree Nichols' beating death in Memphis have brought fresh calls for police to abolish the illegal, unconstitutional tactic known as a jump out. Mom! Officers jumping out of their patrol car to stop someone without probable cause, often looking for guns or drugs.
We do not do jump outs, ma'am.
Now, this never before.
Here we go. Liar, liar, pants on fire. I am Leroy Truth for Leroy Truth Investigations, because transparently recording our public officials in the course of their daily duties shall keep us free and hold them accountable. That was Chief of Police of Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., Robert Conti. A typical piece of crap and a snuff-headed boogle whacker, fuck knuckle, and all around, well, piece of shit. He is a liar. Of course, how do we know? Because he's a cop and his mouth is moving. Now, this is a very disturbing, not surprising, unfortunately, but very disturbing story about jump outs that was condoned by the culture of police in metropolitan, beautiful Washington, D.C. area, that lovely area where all those great laws are made to take away and shred our constitutional rights. Now, I'm going to continue the story here, and what this is cops in the Metropolitan Police Department would just jump out like rabid animals on innocent people and attempt to find something they did wrong. Drugs, cash, something. And the police chief is saying, oh, I had no idea that was happening. If it was happening, it was because they weren't supervised well enough. You dumbass. You're the fucking supervisor. There's something, ladies and gentlemen, in the police departments, in military, called chain of command. People don't fart without permission with chain of command. It is no different in the military, and as the police departments throughout the United States have become even more militarized, they are even clear on chain of command. People don't just jump out because, hey, I got an idea. I got 3 or 4 or 5 other officers here. There's someone who ain't doing shit. Let's jump out and attack that motherfucker. Police chief will never know. Shh. Doesn't work like that. And so I'm going to continue the story. We need to hold these people accountable and this chief of police accountable as well. Let's continue.
Poor broadcast video of MPD Chief Robert Conti reveals new questions about whether MPD is going far enough to ensure DC police aren't using jump outs in the district.
Since there was no investigation done, you don't know as you sit here whether jump outs were still being done in 2018, correct?
Cat got his freaking tongue? What the fuck?
I don't know, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
And you don't know as you...
So he obviously is not in charge of his department. If he's not, who is? Oh, he's the chief of police. It's him.
Here whether jump outs are still being done today, right?
Somebody could be doing a jump out right now, and we may not know that. It's not something that's condoned by the department, ma'am.
Now, because, of course, cops are allowed to do whatever they want. I'm going to do a jump out today. I'm going to beat someone up. See, ladies and gentlemen, we need to hold the top levels of people in police accountable. The chiefs of police, the lieutenants, the captains, the sergeants. They're all personally responsible. And some people in my comments have said, and by the way, the majority of you, my subscribers and my viewers, are absolutely freaking awesome. You understand, you get it. And there's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage that are like, oh, you can't hold the chief of police accountable for what their people do. Otherwise, you'd have to hold kids accountable. Or actually, otherwise, you would have to hold parents accountable for what their children do. Well, let's see. There is precedent, boys and girls, with this. Take a look at this. A Texas dad was convicted of murder and fatal shootings by teen son. He didn't do the murders. His kid did. But he was held liable. A Texas man has been convicted of capital murder in the fatal shooting of 3 teenagers by the man's then 14-year-old son. Acosta testified they did not know his son, Abel Acosta, had a gun or had shot anyone, only that the teenager got into his vehicle and told his father to drive away because someone was shooting. And Abel Acosta disappeared shortly after the shooting, and authorities say he remains at large and considered armed and dangerous. And going to the end here, it says, Acosta, who faces life without parole because prosecutors did not seek the death penalty, was convicted under a Texas state law that allows accomplices to be charged even if they did not commit the actual crime. That's pretty suspect there. So the father is charged with capital murder and convicted, but police chiefs are not responsible for what the people they train, supervise, manage, hold accountable under the chain of command? That they're not responsible for that somehow, and this police chief is acting like a total idiot, and a snuff-headed booger whacker, that he's clueless. Well, if he's clueless, then he needs to be fired immediately. However, he's not. It's the culture, ladies and gentlemen. The culture supports and allows this shit with a wink, wink. I'm winking badly here. With a wink, wink, like, don't tell me about it, but I know what's going on. Those captains, those lieutenants, those chiefs, the sergeants know everything. They know when someone burps. They know when someone flosses their teeth. They know when someone has that, like a piece of spinach stuck in their teeth that looks really dumb and no one tells them because it's kind of funny. They all know that. Let's continue with the story here.
That's Chief Conti in a deposition last November, admitting under oath he did not investigate claims of jump-out tactics being used by MPD officers in 2018 when Conti was an assistant chief.
I didn't want to believe it.
Chief Conti's deposition is part of a lawsuit brought by 18-year MPD veteran Sergeant Charlotte Jassu, alleging retaliation under D.C.'s Whistleblower Act after she reported wrongdoing, including the use of jump-outs, to her superiors.
I was present during a roll call when an officer explained and instructed other officers to use the jump-out tactic.
Chief Conti testified he didn't remember Jassu telling him about that roll call meeting, but
How convenient. He didn't remember. Of course, they have very selective memory. Good memories when they say, oh, he had a gun. That's why we had to shoot him 47 times, when in fact, he didn't have a gun. But when it comes to actual crime within the police units, that, of course, as people say, there's only a few bad apples. How can he not remember when one of these very rare bad apples was reported about? Ridiculous.
jump-out claims are backed by former MPD officer Andrea Latson, who appeared for her deposition via cell phone from her car at night.
I've seen them myself when they just jump out on guys that are just standing there not doing anything.
Latson, who retired from the department in 2020 after 26 years on the force, testified in her case it wasn't Conti, but another supervisor who did not take action when she reported jump outs on more than 20 separate occasions.
It was one of those like, and your point?
I remember
In the chief's 2020...
Hold on. She reported on 20 separate occasions. Again, it was not an anomaly. Again, this just goes to prove it, of course, what you and I, the wise men and women of our world and our country, already know. But no one did anything, and they didn't investigate.
Deposition, which was provided to WUSA 9 by Sergeant Jassu's attorneys. Conti said he did not investigate the jump-out claims because they weren't specific enough, despite an...
I'm fucking crazy with this, man. They weren't specific enough. Your guys, maybe some women too, but your police people underneath you are jumping out of their car like a gang, thugs, rabid animals, and beating the shit out of innocent people. Do we need to be more specific than that? For a chief of police to investigate, whose job is to investigate crimes? Certainly sounds like a crime.
In-person meeting and a follow-up email from Jassu.
I don't see anything specific actionable from Sergeant Jassu that says, hey, here's where they did a jump out.
Is that her
on
job
scene.
to tell you what
Of
to do?
course, she's a sergeant on the Metropolitan
So
Police
she's
Department.
supposed to direct you what to do?
She's an official of the Metropolitan Police Department.
What does that say, that there's been no investigation?
That they enable it and they're okay with it. And they allow it.
You believe they look the other way?
Absolutely.
We know, ladies and gentlemen, they look the other way. And we got to stop this. We have to stop this by holding this guy accountable right now. Right now.
On WUSA 9 News at Noon, Ardelia Gonzalez asked Chief Conti about our report. The chief told her his officers don't, quote, just get out of the car to see who's going to run without having probable cause, or at least reasonable suspicion. The chief adding jump outs is not a part of what we do at the Metropolitan Police Department, and that jump outs only happen when officers don't have proper supervision. Eric Flack, WUSA 9.
Thank you, Eric, for that actual reporting that you're doing. That's real reporting. You see, he's lying, of course, and I know personally about jump outs, and I experienced them in a different context. And some of you know the story, but I'll share the Cliff Note version of this. Is I am an avid and passionate boater. I've been boating since I was a kid, about 8 years old. And when I was boating on the Hudson River, I bought my first boat as an adult when I was 2007. Up until then, I used my father's boats. And 2007. And in that year, police on the Hudson River were stopping all boaters with no probable cause and demanding they do a safety check of our boats. There's something called the Fourth Amendment. They completely disregarded that. And everyone complied with it because, including myself initially, because I didn't know we could say no. Didn't feel right, felt like it was wrong. But they were stopping boaters 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a single day. And a stop can take anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes each. And people were getting stopped by 2, 3, 4, 5 different police agencies in a day, in 2, 3, 4, 5 miles of the Hudson River, because there's no specific jurisdiction of a police agency. You can have a New York City police agency up in Albany, part of the Hudson River, someone in Albany, some part of Newburgh. And I said, no, not acceptable. And I worked on it for 4 years, and it finally became national front page news of the New York Times. I worked with Senator Schumer. And for those commenting, I'm not condoning Schumer. I'm not saying I'm against him. I lived in New York at the time, and he was the senator, and he had read the article about my group Freedom to Go Boating in the New York Times, and he wanted to do something about it, so I worked with him on it, and we did a press conference together. I met with all the cops in the entire Hudson River from New York City to Albany with the commander of the U.S. Coast Guard, Kenneth Piero, at the time moderating, and the cops lied, said we never stopped a single person with no probable cause. I had a stack of petitions this big with various people who had been stopped, including myself, and it ended. I stopped it. And I want to do the same thing with police reform for the land cops as well. And together, we can do this. And that was the equivalent of jump outs. And I was assaulted because I didn't want to answer questions that I was not legally obligated to answer, and cops would just stop me and demand my identification, demand to look at everything in my boat. And I was assaulted. I know how it is. So let's stop this together, ladies and gentlemen. First, here are my 5 demands for police reform. This is not an all-inclusive list, but 5 fundamental demands. If you'd like to add more to it, email me at leroytruth247@gmail.com. Together, we will change this. Stop qualified immunity right now. They stop internal investigations right now. Body camera footage is not allowed to be muted in any way, video or sound, or it would be a felony. And all body cam footage has got to be released within 24 hours of request. And whoever the head of that police agency is as culpable for whatever crimes his or her underlings do as the people who do them. I am Leroy Truth for Leroy Truth Investigations, because the truth, by transparently recording our public officials in the course of their duty and holding them accountable, will set us free. And remember, the videos we see on YouTube, other places, are a fraction of what actually occurs. Those are the ones we happen to just get lucky that there was video or someone video recording them at the time. Let's change this together. I'm committed to it. You're committed to it. We will create police reform in our United States of America.